God's truth, what an absolute fucking shit show this whole thing has been turning into. Let me set the scene here. We have a international scene, largely American based, but anyway, an international scene. And there are two prominent people in it. That's Amanda Sickens and Gary Moshe. Now, Gary, as we know, has lately been outed, mostly by himself, as being a supporter of child pornography. Okay, so we've been over that. It's disgusting. The thing is, Gary is ably abetted by Amanda. What Amanda does is maintain his YouTube presence by uploading video posts onto YouTube for him, and also linking to those posts from the various social media that she controls, which is definitely supporting the guy. Now, there's no way on the surface of this or any other planet that she's not aware of what's going on. So what that means is it's on her to do something about it, say something about it at the very least. I'm not a big fan of the silence is violence slogan myself. I think that's making it hyperbolic. But to reiterate, what we're discussing here is child pornography, all right? This is, as I've said before, this is no longer about ideology. This is not about antinatalism versus efilism or, any of that kind of crap, the whole red button fantasy scenario. All that bullshit we can just brush to the side for the moment. Gary Moshe has come out explicitly saying that child pornography is okay. He's actually repeating it over and over. He's making some of the most insanely outrageous claims about the stuff one could think of, to the point where really you've got to scratch your head and wonder, why would he go so far as to defend this crap? Why would he do that? What's in it for him? I mean, that's just what one automatically thinks. Jesus Christ, there's a lot of smoke. One would imagine there'd have to be a fire somewhere. He's got a past of being a fucking sexual creep anyway. So he's sort of up there within the antinatalist / Efilist scene. One of its most prominent exponents has been for years, and he's coming out in favour of child pornography. That really does demand a response from people. From what little I've been able to glean from social media I can get access to, because I don't go to a lot of the private forums or discords or any of that sort of stuff anymore, opinion seems divided on the matter. There are people who are, saying, yeah, this is bullshit. And then there's others who are just coming up with some of the most ridiculous claims. I mean, first of all, saying, this is about, getting at Gary. Well, yeah, it is about getting at Gary, because Gary advocates for child pornography. And going by how some people have responded, there's a lot of idiots out there, and I really think, the whole issue of mental health within this community is really apparent. I say that as a depressive myself. I've had breakdowns. I know what it feels like. But some people are just not only extremely defensive about Gary, and particularly about what they think he represents, i.e. this grand, quote, philosophy, unquote, of Efilism, but also I think their position with it. It looks like there's a lot of people who have picked up on it, made it part of their personalities, and any kind of criticism of where it comes from becomes a criticism of that part of it that they've made part of their personalities, therefore a criticism of them. So it gets very personal for people. Bit of armchair psychology there, but that's what it looks like. Circling back onto Amanda, as I said, another very prominent person, a prime mover within the international antinatalist scene, and she is just absent in this issue. Come on, she knows. She has opinions. The reason why it would be in her best interest to come out and say something about, come out and condemn Gary's words now, is that it would save her, personally at least, a bit of dignity, a bit of integrity. Who gives a shit about antinatalism right now? Okay? The fact of the matter is that you've got someone who is really openly advocating for the abuse of children, because this stuff can't exist without kids being sexually abused. It really comes down to that. If we're going to push everything else away, it comes down to the abuse of children. And if your answer to that is, well, this is why we need antinatalism, because if there weren't any people to be born, blah, blah. If that's your response to that, you're a fucking pissant. You've abandoned reality for some kind of self-concept that you can hide behind. And you'd know it. There'd be a part of you that would know that. You're probably saying, well, how can you be so fucking sure about that? Because I've done it. I've done it in the past. I've made mistakes like that too. This is with politics. Thinking that if you hang on to one particular ideology, you have the answer for everything, and therefore you don't have to answer for anything. I found to my cost that the real world doesn't work like that. So I can see it when it's in others. Look, it's actually pretty simple. You'd think that people whose every second sentence is about suffering and how deeply they feel about the sufferings of the world and how concerned they are about suffering would be able to say, yeah, child pornography, fuck that shit, and piss on anyone who says that it's okay. You'd think that would be the easiest thing to do. But if it's someone who's a big knob within the little scene there, you can see the parallels with similar situations on a wider scale. Institutions that, when it's discovered that one of theirs is actually a perp, going right out of their way to cover up the whole thing and make the whole thing go away. This is what's going on within the AN scene is kind of a microcosm of that kind of thing. It's not for me to point the finger at Gary and say that he is a perp. There's no actual evidence of that. But it's got to be said, who the hell goes that far in claiming that this stuff is okay? I mean, for what reason? He seems to be really adamant about making this point, and it's either because he is that disingenuous to the point of stupid, or he has some kind of affinity with the stuff. Because there can't be any other way. I mean, or both of those at the same time. That's plausible. But some other reason, no. And we're not even talking about, logic, reasoning and all that kind of stuff as well. Because this is purely emotional. This is purely from the guts. In any case, with what he has said so far is inexcusable, inadmissible. You cannot condone it. You cannot excuse it. Seriously. If it can't be explained to you any more than it's been explained to you already, you've lost it. You've lost touch with how the world works. A much darker place than, in fact, you may think if you're pleased to call yourself an antinatalist or an Efilist and, you think life is suffering and yet you want to sort of just ignore what's going on right within your own scene. You are ignoring the real darkness there and just how dark and horrible this whole existence thing can get. It is right there in front of you right now. Antinatalists and Efilists. Those of you who support Gary's pseudo-philosophical ideology. Those of you who are clinging to it because it's a part of yourself. Those of you who want to make excuses and allowances for it. It's there in front of you. If you can't deal with that, then what can one say? I'm having a cup of tea.